Joining us now is the star of NFL Network's coverage of the draft last night, the Rich Eisen show on Roku. Also, Run Rich Run, the charitable campaign raising awareness and support for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. He's been doing it for 20 years, and you can be involved in it as well. Fans are encouraged to submit their 40-yard dash videos on social media using the hashtag RunLikeRich. Well, let's start with the Falcons there, Rich. Did the Falcons have a good night last night?
I have no idea. The Falcons GM did a mock draft. Is that who you have on later?
No, I found a reporter
Oh.
who had Michael Penix Jr. going to the Falcons, and he came out on April 5th. So
It's a head scratcher, to say the least, Dan, that they would sign Kirk Cousins to a monster contract, owe him $90 million over the next 2 years, and then get somebody who clearly is going to be a starting quarterback well before Kirk Cousins' plan to retire as an Atlanta Falcon could be realized. So it's a wild scenario. Done this now 21 drafts, 18 in person. Never seen anything like this one. Never seen anything like it because we're always told by front offices, don't judge us on our entire off season until you get to the draft. You can't judge everybody just on free agency. Let's see what the draft looks like. That is definitely something the Dallas Cowboys would tell every single fan that they have. And I don't recall a time where a team goes and signs a quarterback, a veteran, to a contract that large with a no trade clause to boot, and at the same time clearly is falling in love with his replacement. And that is truly unprecedented.
what was the reaction on I was watching, and Ian Rappaport
Thank
was
you.
like, they might, there's a chance they're considering Michael Penix Jr. And I'm watching, I'm thinking, oh, I think he means that maybe somebody's trading up to get Michael Penix. Like, why would the Falcons? But your guys' reaction was,
Yeah, it went from a Dumb and Dumber, you're saying there's a chance, to reality in a split second. Like, that was wild. We were all looking at each other as it happened, sort of like, really? Okay. And it's one of those moments, obviously, on a broadcast where the needle's ripped off the record, but you have to also be as respectful as possible because, Michael Penix Jr. didn't decide to be drafted under these circumstances in the same way Kirk Cousins didn't decide to be drafted in the same way that he was drafted in DC just a couple of rounds later after the Commanders chose a quarterback second overall. That's the only moment that could even be remotely close to something like this in the 20, some odd years that I've been fortunate to have the chair. That's Cousins has been involved in both, where he was
yeah.
the other quarterback in, but the first quarterback wasn't a veteran signed to a monster contract. It was a second overall selected guy in RG3. We were all just knowing, all right, this is the moment. But Penix is so talented. He's worthy of the 8th overall pick in the draft. I mean, Kurt Warner thought he was better of a prospect than Drake May. And he had him, I guess, rated higher on his draft board, if there's such a thing for Kurt. And so you have to understand why Penix is being drafted 8th overall. He is worthy of that pick while also talking about the unique circumstances in real time.
Give me the other head scratcher that jumps out.
I don't know if they're really, well, I mean, it depends on how JJ McCarthy performs. So if JJ McCarthy performs well in Minnesota, has a season, if he does get a shot to start week 1 with Sam Darnold being there, has a season that we think at least I could, I am talking through a cell phone right now, Zooming with you, and the phone protector cover says Michigan beat everybody on it. So obviously I'm a little biased when it comes to JJ McCarthy, but if he gets a shot, Dan, and he's got his own JJ and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Aaron Jones and a coach and quarterback coach who's Josh McCown that's set up to have him succeed, then you're going to look right at the Giants and go, really? Okay, you sat there at 6, you stuck and you picked, and obviously Malik Neighbors is insanely talented. Again, that's nothing against that kid. But if Drew Lock is going to be the week one starter, which I expect he will be now, and then Daniel Jones comes back and is somewhat similar to the quarterback we saw prior to him getting hurt last year, then there no doubt will be a lot of longtime listeners, first-time callers from Staten Island basically saying, what was up with you taking a wide receiver for this quarterback group when J.J. McCarthy, who's dominating in Minnesota, that is going to be a possibility for the fall. But in terms of anyone else, I mean, nothing comes close to Penix being drafted by Atlanta, and why a team that does appear to be set right now to add a big piece on defense or trade out and get more draft choices lower down to get the same defender that they could have chosen at 8 in the middle of the first round. There's nothing close to that. That they didn't add something to make their roster better last night. What they did was plan for the future with at a position that they've already handsomely paid somebody.
What are the Bills doing?
You know what they're doing is I think they're amassing more picks to get lower in a draft to take wide receivers that they're equally as happy with at the top of the second round. It is possible that Brandon Beane bought himself a full overnight and an all day to hammer something out with San Francisco, perhaps, for Brandon Ayuk, as opposed to doing it on the draft board when the Niners are figuring out what they're doing themselves, 31st overall. Now you can really set to it. If there is a veteran out there that may not be Ayuk, you can try and figure that out. But otherwise, I know them making a trade with Kansas City particularly sticks in the craw of Bills fans. But I mean, if they were going to get Adonai Mitchell last night, 32nd overall, and they hopped out of that spot so the Panthers could take the kid Leggett from Florida State, who verbally said in the process, Carolina told me they're going to get me with the first pick in the second night. And so the free football world knew who Carolina was trading into that spot. That also includes Buffalo. So what's the big deal? I guess you're only costing yourself a 5th year of contractual control with the kid you're drafting first up tonight while giving you a shot to make a blockbuster deal. That's pretty much what I think. And maybe they also weren't interested in Xavier Worthy, and they knew the Chiefs were, and just keep amassing picks, obviously, for a team that made some big salary cap decision moves on the defensive side of the ball. They need to get more kids and supplement, and second night picks in this draft isn't such a bad thing.
How would you rank the atmosphere last night in Detroit?
Awesome. It was freezing cold. So even with all that, 250,000 people coming to this spot, and it was lit. It was a great atmosphere last night, and I'm keen to see what the next 2 days bring, because they're often running to beat Nashville's record of 600,000 people.
Wow.
And Nashville at least had lower Broadway, so people could step in and out of outstanding establishments to sample the draft. This was in Cadillac Square, and it was really you couldn't go in and out. As a matter of fact, they closed down the entryway about an hour before the draft. They basically said sorry, and it turned into Times Square. There were kind of like people spilling on the outskirts of the draft. It was great. It was awesome, and tonight should be hopefully equally as lit.
How's your energy?
Oh, Dan, I appreciate you asking. My energy's great. How's yours?
Spectacular.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What'd you think of the Penix pick?
I like him. I was told he was moving up. I didn't know that he was moving up there and that team, and it could work out. But it's like when people say, well, Jordan Love worked out. Well, did it? Because in the moment, you didn't help Aaron Rodgers, but you did help your future, and he had a really good year. Now you got to pay Jordan Love $45 or $50 million. So he could have been the right quarterback. It just wasn't the right time for him to be the right quarterback. And I think that's what I thought with Penix. Now, I never would have brought in Kirk Cousins for $100 million. I just wouldn't have done it. With the number of quarterbacks in this draft, maybe, I like one or I like two, but I just wouldn't. Coming off Achilles, I just wouldn't have done. He's 35. And you're drafting Penix, who's probably going to be 27 by the time he gets an opportunity to play on a regular basis. He's 24. It just seemed Jordan Love is now turning 24, I think. So I don't know. It was a
because but I think you bringing up Jordan Love's situation is no doubt what looms over this decision, for the lack of a better phrase, that at least Green Bay was fortunate enough to see the year Jordan Love had before they're going to make that large financial commitment to him. So they know who they have in him. That is going to be the question as to when Penix does get in there. 26, 27 years old, as you point out. And Atlanta is looking at the fact that on the back end of Penix's deal, that they are, yes, forfeiting half of a rookie contract, and the financial gains you get by having one. And also, that is the mantra in the NFL right now, is winning a Super Bowl within a rookie contract for a quarterback drafted as high as Penix was. They're forfeiting half of that, but they're looking at the back half of that, where I looked it up this morning. He's going to cost them $6.5 million over the final 2 years of his deal, and then a fifth-year option, which is dirt cheap. So they're looking at that, but they're also, as you pointed out, they're not supplementing the guy they have just spent insane generational money on. And that guy shows up, he's throwing out first pitches at baseball games saying, I'm an Atlanta guy now. I'm going to retire here. And you've now robbed him of that whole, public persona right off before he barely showed up for the offseason workout program. And that's going to be the question too, that he's going to have as he's walking through the buildings. Like, when did they fall in love with Penix? Was it like legitimately during the college football playoffs and he still signed me and didn't say that they were thinking of him? Yeah. Was it during the top 30 visit that they took to him? Was it during a pro day? When was it? And how come it didn't filter to me until 30 seconds before they picked him? Right?
Yeah.